Celestia grew up in a small village with her mother. She was quiet, but very smart and full of dreams. She used to sell roasted maize in a cracked basket to help her family. People laughed when she said she would marry a rich man one day, but she proved them wrong. She married Rhodes, a proud man from a very wealthy family in Lacoma. At first, she thought it was a dream come true, but soon things changed. His mother, Mama Kunto, looked down on her. His sisters mocked her. Rhodes, the man she loved, slowly started treating her badly too. One day, in front of his whole family, Rhodes told her to kneel down and say sorry to his mother. She was hurt, but she did it. Nobody knew that the same quiet woman would soon rise in a way that would shock the whole village. Celestia never thought she'd marry a man like Rhodes. He was tall, rich, confident, and came from one of the most powerful families in Lacoma. When he walked into her village that sunny afternoon, dressed in fine clothes and driving a shiny black car, everyone stared. But it was Celestia he noticed. He called her special, said her eyes held fire, and her heart was gold. He came back again and again, bringing her gifts, perfume, shoes, even a phone. He told her she was different, that he didn't care about where she came from. Celestia, who once sold roasted maize with cracked feet and big dreams, fell in love. Their wedding was grand, more than anything her village had ever seen. People clapped and cried, proud that one of their own had married into wealth. Celestia thought she had made it. She thought love had won, but she had no idea what was waiting for her behind the big gates of the Rhodes mansion. From the first day she entered the house, things began to shift. Mama Kunto, Rhodes's mother, looked at her like she was dirt. "Is this the village girl you married?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The sisters weren't any better. They laughed at the way Celestia spoke, copied her walk to mock her, and made fun of her food. Celestia smiled through it. She told herself they would warm up to her with time, but instead, the coldness grew. At first, Rhodes tried to defend her. "Give her time," he told his family. "She's learning." But slowly, his sweet words faded. He stopped smiling at her the way he used to. When she shared her thoughts, he called her too local. When she corrected someone politely, he told her to know her place. Celestia didn't understand. Wasn't this the same man who once called her his queen? She tried harder. She dressed better, spoke softer, and stayed quiet in front of his family. She did everything to please them, but no matter what she did, it was never enough. One day, during a family meeting, she spoke up about a business idea. Everyone went quiet. Rhodes stared at her like she had just cursed. Later that night, he scolded her, saying, "You talk too much for someone who came from nothing." Those words hit her like a slap. She didn't cry. She just looked at him, this man she had given her heart to, and something inside her began to shift. The Celestia, who had entered the mansion with dreams and love, was slowly becoming a shadow of herself. She stopped talking during meals. She avoided eye contact. She smiled only when spoken to. Her voice, once full of fire and passion, became quiet, like the night. But deep inside her heart, something was still alive. A small flame, waiting, watching, gathering strength. Celestia knew she couldn't go on like this. But she also knew, if she was going to rise again, it would not be with tears. It would be with power. Quiet, smart, unshakable power. She wasn't done. Not yet. One sunny afternoon, Mama Kunto called for a surprise family gathering. She told everyone it was to officially welcome Celestia into the Rhodes family. She even sent a driver to pick Celestia up, saying, "Dress nicely, my dear. Today is for you." Celestia's heart fluttered. Maybe things were finally changing. Maybe Mama Kunto was ready to accept her. She wore her best outfit, one Rhodes had bought for her during their courtship. She even styled her hair in a way his sisters once praised. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. But the moment she entered the grand hall, the air changed. Every seat was taken. Uncles, aunts, cousins, even family friends, all dressed in rich fabrics, all staring at her like she didn't belong. The room fell silent as she walked in. No one smiled, no one clapped, just cold eyes and whispering mouths. Mama Kunto stood with a fake smile. "Ah, our Celestia is here," she said, her voice sweet but sharp. "Now we can begin." Celestia sat beside Rhodes, But even he didn't look at her. His jaw was tight. His fingers tapped the table. Something was wrong. Then Mama Kunto began to speak. At first, she pretended to praise Celestia. "She's from the village, but she has tried," she said, looking around. "She's learning, slowly, but—" She paused. "Some people forget to show respect." Celestia's heart skipped. Then Rhodes stood up. "Enough," he said, his voice loud. "I've kept quiet for too long." Celestia turned to him, confused. "What are you talking about?" He looked down at her with eyes she barely recognized. "You disrespected my mother. Twice. Once when you spoke back, and again when you refused to cook for her guests." "That's not true," Celestia said softly. "I wasn't even—" "Silence!" he barked. Gasps filled the hall. Celestia's eyes widened. "Rhodes, why are you doing this?" Rhodes didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the crowd and said, "In our culture, we do not let disrespect slide, no matter who it is." Then he looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Kneel and apologize." Celestia froze. Her ears rang. Her chest tightened. "What?" "I said kneel, Celestia. Show my mother you know your place." The entire hall waited. Some held their breath. Others smirked. Mama Kunto leaned back in her chair, enjoying every second. Celestia's knees trembled. Tears welled in her eyes. Her hands shook as she slowly dropped to the floor. She could feel the cold tiles under her skin. Her heart shattered into pieces as she whispered, "I'm sorry." No one clapped. No one offered a hand. They all just watched as the proud village girl who once dreamed big was brought to her knees. Later that night, she sat alone in her room, staring at her reflection. Her eyes were red. Her pride was bruised. But deep inside, a fire was burning. They thought they had broken her, but what they didn't know was this. Celestia was not weak. She was waiting, and her silence was only the beginning of something they would never forget. That night, after the family gathering, Celestia didn't cry. She couldn't. She sat in the cold bathroom, her back pressed against the wall, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were red and swollen, but there was no real pain left inside her, only a deep, burning fire. She remembered her mother's words. "A woman may kneel," her mother had said when Celestia was younger, but only to rise higher than before. Those words echoed in her mind now, as she stared at the woman in the mirror. The woman who had just been humiliated in front of everyone, forced to apologize for things she hadn't done. The woman who had been made to feel small, insignificant, and out of place. But the woman in the mirror wasn't broken. No, she was stronger than ever. Her heart didn't break, it hardened. In that moment, something inside Celestia clicked. She had spent too many years trying to fit into the world of the Rhodes family, trying to make them accept her, to prove that she belonged. But they had shown her that they would never accept her. They would always see her as less than them, no matter how hard she tried. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about family. It was about power, and they had used it against her over and over again, but no more. Celestia stood up, wiping her eyes. She wasn't going to leave quietly. She wasn't going to let them think they could break her, destroy her spirit. She would leave, yes, but she would leave with her dignity intact, and she would make sure that the Rhodes family would never forget her. She made a decision. It was time to fight back. For the next few days, Celestia didn't speak much to Rhodes. She went about her daily tasks, cooking, cleaning, keeping her head down. But inside, her mind was racing. She couldn't leave without making them understand. They had humiliated her, treated her like a servant, as if she was beneath them. They had made her kneel, but she would rise. She contacted Ejiro, her childhood friend, the one person she trusted. Ejiro wasn't just a lawyer, he was a digital strategist, someone who knew how to make things go viral. Celestia explained everything to him, the humiliation, the fraud she had overheard, the dark secrets hidden in the Rhodes family business. Ejiro didn't ask questions, he just got to work. Celestia knew this wasn't going to be easy. Rhodes would fight back. Mama Kunto would make sure she stayed quiet. But Celestia wasn't afraid anymore. She was done playing by their rules. She started collecting everything she could. The document, the secret recording, the evidence of corruption that Rhodes and his family had tried so hard to hide. She knew it would take time to put everything together, but she was patient. She would wait. She would watch and learn, and when the time was right, she would strike. Every day, she acted like everything was normal. She smiled at Rhodes, cooked for his family, and did what she was expected to do. But in her heart, she was preparing for war. The Rhodes family had no idea what was coming. They thought they had broken her. They thought they had defeated her. But they were wrong. Celestia was no longer the woman who had walked into their house, hopeful and eager to please. She was a woman with a purpose, a woman who had nothing left to lose but everything to gain. And when the time came, she would show them just how powerful a woman who rises can truly be. Celestia knew she couldn't just leave. She needed to make the Rhodes family understand the pain they had caused her. So, she made a plan that would strike them where it hurt the most, their pride and reputation. The first person Celestia reached out to was Ejiro. Ejiro had been her childhood friend, someone she trusted completely. He was a lawyer, but more than that, he had a sharp mind for digital strategies. He knew how to take down even the strongest people with just the right information. Celestia explained everything to Ejiro. She told him about the years of humiliation she had suffered in the Rhodes household, the way they treated her like she didn't belong, the cruel things they said behind her back, and how they had forced her to kneel in front of them. She also told him about the secrets she had overheard, the illegal activities the Rhodes family had been involved in, the fraudulent contracts Mama Kunto had forged to steal money, and the lies that Rhodes had built his wealth on. Ejiro didn't hesitate. He immediately started to work with Celestia. Together, they began gathering evidence, footage, audio recording, and documents that proved everything she had been enduring. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about exposing the truth that the Rhodes family had been hiding for so long. They started with the hidden business secret. Celestia had always overheard Rhodes bragging about his family's empire, but now she realized how much of it was built on lies. The Rhodes family had used illegal contracts to avoid paying taxes, stolen from their partners, and manipulated the law for their own gain. Mama Kunto, Rhodes's mother, was the mastermind behind many of these shady deals. She was the one who had forged signatures, covered up crimes, and made sure no one ever knew the truth. Celestia also remembered the way they had treated her. They had humiliated her in every way possible, from mocking her accent to treating her like an outsider. They had never truly accepted her. It was clear to Celestia now that they saw her as nothing more than a servant in their grand house. The plan they put together was simple but powerful. Celestia and Ejiro would use the evidence they had gathered to expose the Rhodes family's secrets. They knew they had to hit them where it would hurt the most, their status and pride. The Rhodes family had built their wealth and power on lies and manipulation. If the world knew the truth, their reputation would be ruined. But Celestia didn't just want to hurt them. She wanted to show them who she had become. She wanted them to understand that they could never break her. They had forced her to kneel, but now she would rise. Celestia was no longer the quiet woman they had underestimated. She was a force to be reckoned with, and soon, the entire world would know her story. They would know the truth about the Rhodes family and about the woman they had tried to crush. Celestia knew she couldn't let the Rhodes family see her pain. They thought they had broken her when they made her kneel, but they were wrong. Instead of reacting with anger or sadness, Celestia decided to play along. She pretended that nothing had changed, that she was still the same quiet woman they had always underestimated. Every day she went about her duties, cooking, cleaning, and smiling through the insults. The Rhodes family saw her doing all the things she always did, never suspecting that underneath it all, she was planning something far bigger than they could imagine. They thought they had worn her down, that she was just a servant in their grand house. But Celestia was far from broken. She knew she had to stay calm, stay unnoticed for now. They believed she was nothing more than a passive woman who would always follow their orders. But in reality, she was silently preparing for the moment when she would strike. Behind closed doors, she began gathering the evidence she needed to bring them down. Celestia had heard enough over the years to know how corrupt the Rhodes family was. She had seen the way Mama Kunto manipulated the business to her advantage. the way they used their wealth to control everyone around them. She had overheard their conversations about land deals, tax evasion, and shady business practices. Now, she had the proof. Little by little, Celestia gathered everything she could. She took copies of confidential business files, documents that would expose the Rhodes family's illegal activities. She collected legal papers that showed how they had been avoiding paying taxes for years, how they had stolen from their partners, and how Mama Kunto had signed fake contracts to claim land that wasn't theirs. She even found a signed confession from Mama Kunto herself, admitting to land-grabbing schemes that had hurt innocent people. While the Rhodes family thought she was just a quiet, obedient wife, Celestia was becoming something much stronger. She had transformed from the woman they humiliated into a woman who had the power to take everything from them. Celestia knew the time would come when she would have to make her move, but for now, she kept her head down and continued to play the role of the dutiful wife. She knew that if she raised any suspicion, they might stop her before she could finish what she had started. So, with a calm face and steady hands, she went through the motions. She smiled at Rhodes's family when they insulted her. She made their meals, cleaned their house, and did everything they expected of her. But every action, every gesture was part of a bigger plan. And soon, the Rhodes family would realize that the woman they had tried to control was no longer the same. Celestia was preparing to take back everything they had stolen from her, and more. The day of the Rhodes family's annual Thanksgiving banquet arrived. It was a big event, always televised for the world to see. The family loved the attention, the glamour, and the praise. But this year, things would be different. This year, it was Celestia's turn to speak. As the guests chatted and the cameras rolled, Celestia stood up quietly, her heart steady, but her mind focused. She had been planning this moment for weeks, and now it was time for the Rhodes family to finally hear her truth. "Thank you all for the invitation," she began, her voice calm but strong. The audience, including Rhodes and his family, turned their attention toward her. They had no idea what was about to happen. "I have a story to tell," Celestia continued. "A story of lies, insults, and manipulation." Everyone in the room went silent. Rhodes's face went pale. Mama Kunto, sitting proudly beside him, raised an eyebrow, thinking Celestia was about to speak in gratitude. But this wasn't a speech of thanks. It was a confession. Celestia took a deep breath, then began to reveal everything. She spoke about the many times Rhodes's family had insulted her, mocked her for her accent, and told her she wasn't good enough for their rich family. She explained how Mama Kunto had treated her like a servant, how Rhodes had once promised love, but slowly changed, becoming just like his mother. The room was tense, but Celestia wasn't done. She reached into her bag and pulled out several documents. The audience gasped as she began to read out loud, showing evidence of their crimes. She talked about the fraud, the tax evasion, and the stolen land, proof that the Rhodes family had been hiding illegal activities for years. As she spoke, Celestia showed the receipts. They were all there: contracts, bank statements, and even Mama Kunto's confession to stealing land from innocent villagers. The Rhodes family was exposed for what they really were. Chaos erupted. Rhodes jumped to his feet, shouting for Celestia to stop. He tried to grab the microphone from her, but it was too late. Celestia had already uploaded everything online for the world to see. The footage was quickly shared across social media. It spread like wildfire. Within minutes, news outlets were picking it up, and people everywhere were talking about what Celestia had done. The Rhodes family's reputation, their wealth, and their power crumbled right before their eyes. Mama Kunto fainted in shock. She never thought Celestia had the courage to fight back. Rhodes stood there, frozen in disbelief, his face turning red with anger and embarrassment. But there was nothing they could do now. The truth had been exposed. As the room descended into chaos, Celestia calmly stepped down from the stage. She had said everything she needed to say. With one final glance at Rhodes, she turned and walked away. The whole country was watching. What Celestia had just done was biblical. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a revolution. Within just 48 hours, everything Rhodes had built came crashing down. The empire he and his family had worked so hard to maintain was no longer. Banks froze their accounts. The money they thought would protect them was useless now. Government agents began investigating, digging into their corrupt deals, their illegal contracts, and the hidden truths Celestia had exposed. The tabloids went wild, printing every shocking detail about the Rhodes family's lies and scams. Headlines screamed, "Rich family's dark secrets exposed." Meanwhile, Celestia, she was gone. Without a single word, she vanished from their lives. She didn't need to say goodbye. There was no point. The damage had been done, and she didn't have to stick around to see it unfold. Celestia had already delivered her message, loud and clear. Rhodes, on the other hand, was desperate. He tried calling her, over and over again. His voice was full of regret, his heart full of panic, but there was no answer. Celestia had cut him off completely. He had destroyed everything they once had, and now he was paying the price. No amount of calling or begging could fix what he had done. Mama Kunto, the woman who thought she was untouchable, wasn't doing any better. She went online, pleading for mercy, asking the public to forgive her. "Please," she begged in a video. "I made a mistake. I never meant for any of this to happen. Please, show us mercy." But it was too late. The world had seen the truth. People were angry, and they weren't going to forgive her or her family for all the lies they'd been hiding. Karma had already done its work. The Rhodes family, who had once looked down on others, were now at the bottom. Their wealth and power were gone, and they had no one to blame but themselves. The family that had treated Celestia like nothing, that had humiliated her, was now being exposed for their own deceit. For Celestia, the fall of the Rhodes family was more than just sweet revenge. It was the moment she knew she was stronger than ever. She didn't need to stand around and watch them crumble. Her silence said everything. They had thought they could break her, make her kneel, but instead she had risen, taking them down without lifting a finger. As for Rhodes and his family, they were left with nothing but regret, nothing but the realization that they had lost everything in the most humiliating way possible. They had been the mighty, but now they had fallen. And Celestia? She had already moved on, leaving them in their mess while she stepped into her new life with her head held high. 3 months after the Rhodes family's downfall, Celestia was no longer the quiet, broken woman they once knew. She had become a symbol of strength, and her life was now full of hope and purpose. Instead of staying in the shadows, she stepped into the light and created something powerful, the Phoenix Foundation. This wasn't just a business. It was a place where women who had suffered emotional abuse, especially in wealthy households, could find support and help. Celestia's foundation quickly became a safe space for many women who had experienced what she had gone through, feeling trapped, silenced, and mistreated by those with money and power. The Phoenix Foundation offered them a way to rise again, just like Celestia had. She used her own pain to help others heal. Her story didn't stop there. Celestia became a voice for women everywhere, speaking on TV interviews about her journey. She shared how she had turned her struggles into strength and how any woman could do the same. She became a role model, inspiring millions across Africa. Her words touched hearts, and her story gave hope to those who thought they couldn't escape their circumstances. But Celestia didn't stop at interviews. She wrote a book, a bestseller, where she shared every detail of her life, the good, the bad, and the moments that changed everything. The book became a guide for many, teaching them how to stand up for themselves and find their own strength. It wasn't just a book, it was a message to the world that no one should ever feel powerless. As her foundation grew, so did her influence. Celestia became more than just a survivor of abuse. She became a movement. She showed the world that no matter where you come from, no matter what people try to do to break you, you can always rise. Like a phoenix, she had come out of the ashes stronger than ever. Her life, once filled with humiliation and silence, was now filled with power and purpose. Women who had felt invisible now had someone they could look up to. They saw Celestia and thought, if she can rise, so can I. Her message spread across the continent, and soon the whole world knew her name. Celestia had gone from being the woman who was forced to kneel to being the woman who helped others rise. She had turned her pain into power, and her story was no longer just hers. It was everyone's story. And as the world watched, they realized something important. When you refuse to stay down, you can create a legacy that will inspire others for generations to come. At a large conference in Abuja, Rhodes sat quietly in the back row, his heart heavy with regret. The room was filled with successful people, but his eyes were locked on one person, Celestia. She was on stage, glowing in a stunning outfit of white and gold. Her presence was calm, yet powerful. The way she spoke, with confidence and grace, left everyone in awe. She was no longer the broken woman he had once known. She had become something far greater. As Celestia continued her speech, Rhodes couldn't take his eyes off her. The pain of their past washed over him, but so did a deep sense of admiration. He remembered the woman he once humiliated, the woman he forced to kneel in front of his family. But now, she was standing tall, stronger than he had ever seen her. Her voice echoed with authority, and it was clear she had become a leader, someone who had found her power and was using it to change lives. Then, their eyes met. In that moment, everything around them seemed to disappear. Rhodes felt a rush of emotions, guilt, shame, and regret. He had never expected this. He had never imagined that Celestia, the woman he had mistreated, would rise so high. And yet, here she was, not only surviving, but thriving. Tears filled his eyes, not just because he had lost her, but because he realized the kind of man he had been. He had let his pride and ego blind him to the truth. He had allowed his mother's manipulation and his own insecurities to hurt the woman he had once loved. Now, he was watching her become a symbol of strength and resilience, and he knew he had played a part in her suffering. As Celestia finished her speech, she walked off the stage, passing by Rhodes. He was still sitting there, unable to move, his heart heavy with remorse. She didn't look at him. She didn't say a word. She simply walked past him, her stride confident and steady. Rhodes felt something inside him snap. He understood, in that moment, the full weight of his action. He had made her kneel, but she had made history. She had turned everything he had done to her into a powerful story of survival and triumph. And as she walked away, he knew that no matter what, he would never be able to undo the past. But he also knew that Celestia had found her peace. And in the end, that was more than he could ever take away from her.